I was learning how to write. I was learning the craft.
Well, shit, a lot of these stories would make really good, books.
I actually started with poetry as a kid because I like the rhyming stuff. So I used to write poems and stuff as a kid.
Where I cut my teeth and learned a lot was from reading a bunch of the screenwriting books and then writing a bunch of crappy screenplays.
Ever since I can remember writing, I started writing stories.
I think writing becomes like a drug. Like once you start, it's really hard to actually stop yourself.
Instead of going out with your friends, you're inside chasing the dragon of having breakthroughs with stories and characters and finding those perfect lines.
Use the rhythm of the story to, control how the audience sees the story.
And if you just read the words on the page, you're not engaging in it.
You can tell more of a story with a facial expression than you can from a huge word balloon taking up half the camp.
Sometimes as a writer, you wonder what the hell you're doing.
If you ever think that, am I just making it in the Kantian sense? Am I just making this up? Am I really alive? Am I really experiencing? Am I just an illusion?
The problem with fiction is reality.
You do not want your reader to feel let down.
I can do this. I think I can do this, but I want to do this.
Like when you give somebody a piece of poetry, and it can be someone who hates poetry, and then they read it, and you see that light hit, and you go, oh, I did it. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Writing Prose. So this episode is going to be one that I think a lot of people have a hard time with. And it's dead ends. So it's when to know when you're just kind of you're done. You need to stop. It's overdone, and you maybe scrap and start over. And I actually had somebody in one of our DM chats say, J.J. Abrams would do well with this episode, apparently.
Yeah, probably.
It is what it is.
Oh God! You gotta let go of the ego enough to know when to put the paintbrush down, as it were.
Right.
I don't know if JJ could do that.
I know it's something that a lot of people struggle with, and sometimes you just keep beating that fucking corpse of a horse because you really want it to work, and it's not gonna a lot of the time. So before we get started in all of that, let's go ahead and do some intros. So first we got Death Metal Hero. How you doing, Lukey?
Hey, Shae. What's going on, girl?
Yeah, no. Just talking, writing stuffs.
Cool.
Nice. We got Odin, my main man. How are you?
We're hanging in. We're doing all right. Excited to be here and chat about some writing stuff for a little bit.
Yay. And then we've got, hi, Will.
Hi, woman.
Oh,
Whoa! No!
See, this
Kick Will.
Okay, guys. Someone just, a leftist just dropped in an alley somewhere. So
canceled. Totally canceled.
Yeah, no.
I
don't cancel since I was born.
That is true.
Ever since my mom tried to cancel me.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
I feel like that's just an abortion, and that's not okay.
Like a really late term one? Like she tried this last year?
Can I still like
stubborn? It was supposed to happen, and he just came out anyway. And his mom was just like, "Well, shit. Now what I gotta do?"
My sister tried to dispose of me, so
I don't doubt that for a second, but I need the story.
Apparently, she just took me somewhere and left me somewhere when I was very little.
Respect.
And the police had to go, find me.
Nice.
So I was a baby. She just left me somewhere.
Ooh.
Oh, that is fucking cold. Mm-hmm. Oh shit.
Mm-hmm.
So
wow. So you were like, how old? Did you say 6? Is that what you said?
No, I was a baby. I was little. She was
you managed to annoy people that much at such an early age that they tried to drop you off somewhere.
My son's too. So as someone that's just came out of the infancy phase of that, I can kind of understand from a sibling point of view if it was this kid will not stop crying, and I
No
can't.
kids, no siblings.
So
I mean, I was
no
an aunt
idea.
at 3, but yeah, no,
No.
like as much as my nieces and nephews would piss me off, I don't think I ever wanted to leave one of them just in a random location.
Pretty much anyone other than my mother and my mother's parents were pretty much looked at me and went, "Why are you even here?" That's pretty much from the beginning.
That explains a lot.
Doesn't it?
Wow.
Hence my very direct Darwinian attitude. I've got to survive.
Tell me, how does this make you feel?
This is Luke going
know what,
full-on Sigmund Freud over there.
Well, I mean, we're analyzing Will's head right now, so we might
Because
as
I
well
got to
play
come
it to
out
the hilt,
guns
right?
blazing. You know, like I can't just like hold back because I'll be left in the bush like my sister tried to leave me. So I got to go guns blazing every time. That's
And
why
that's
I
what
say
we call a callback, ladies and gentlemen.
exactly. So when Shae's like Will, I'm like, all right, woman. You know, it's like
wow.
And now we went full circle. It's great.
All right.
Again,
End of episode, guys. That's where we call it quits. We went full circle.
so we got what, like 10 seconds into it before we went wildly off the rails?
6 minutes and 22 seconds.
No,
Luke.
no. We discussed Will's dead end, which
Yeah.
was apparently.
We discussed how his sister tried to make him a dead end. Yeah.
Oh God, no.
His sister went, well, I'm not going to keep eating this dead horse, and just
and
left him in a bush.
she would dominate this panel. Like she's not a writer, but she would dominate this panel. You think I am assertive? You know, she would just dominate this panel. But you guys would like her more than me, though.
But see, you want to know why she wouldn't? Well,
Why?
because I can just mute.
No, you would like her too much.
Oh, is that it? I just
Yeah. She could
Very
charm the pants off anybody. She's got that ability.
okay.
Okay.
She did do that for the cops too? They came.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, cops are
Maybe
ready to
they're-
marry her every time they pull her over.
I'm cute.
Well, hello there, Frankie. How are you?
I couldn't find the
Oh, it's Frankie.
thing.
The link. You
I had
couldn't
so many
find the
windows
link in the
open.
group chat that we're all in that drops every Sunday. That link
Yeah, that one.
and the one that I DM'd to you.
Yes.
That one too. Okay.
Between my phone, the PC, and 12 windows, I didn't know where the hell anything was.
And two-step
I guess that's
verification
fair.
fails.
Well, Frankie, you're a bit late. We already talked about, Will's dead end, and we already established that we kind of went full circle. So, I mean,
Yeah. 7
Show's
minutes in.
over. Yeah, 7 minutes in, show's over.
the episode's done. I guess. I don't.
No, you.
Now we just analyze me for the whole time.
I'm just gonna keep analyzing. Will.
I guess
It's
I'm
okay.
So the chat, do you have any personal questions that you want me to answer on the air?
Yeah, chat's like, what the hell is going on?
Jeez. Oh, I had to look at the live comments. Let's see who we got here.
Holy shit. Okay. We're going to talk about dead ends. And before that, Frankie, welcome to the panel.
Like, what the fuck is going on here? He's like looking around like, what the hell?
We're happy
Yeah,
that
you just
you're
walked
here.
into it. Yep, you just walked into it. Welcome.
Just to let you know, the way that this went was Will's sister left him in a bush as a baby, and the police had to go find him. So that's what's happened on the show so far. We just learned a lot about Will.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It explains why he's
Do you have
such
a
an angry
specific
person.
name for your complex?
Which complex? What?
The Will
No, I said-
complex.
Yeah, is that what they're going to call it, the Will Complex?
That's where it
I
came
was just-
from.
Oh, all right, good to know. All right. So it does have a specific name, the complex you're now afflicted with.
And if you notice, I'm sitting here on Father's Day rather than talking to my father, so I should give you an idea.
Oh, man.
Did you at least call him?
No.
Okay. All right.
Now I
So
wish Luke
all right,
was with
don't
me
care
so
anymore.
I could get a swig of whatever he's drinking, because that was heavy.
you just went there, and now I feel like a terrible person because not only is it Father's Day, it's also my dad's birthday. But I will say I did call him, and I have been texting him all day, and he is currently hanging out with a bunch of people in my family that I don't feel like talking to. So
My
I'm
dad's
not-
held hostage by a bunch of people who aren't his family as we speak.
My dad is no longer with us, so
Well, I'm
there
sorry to
you
hear
go.
that.
Just bring the mood all the way down since you guys were on a downward
Roger
spiral
that.
already.
Moving on from Father's Day, people.
Good album.
Happy Daddy's Day. Just
Anyway,
can we
fuck
get a
that guy.
do-over? Should I play the video again?
Probably.
Yeah, just roll the credits.
This was practice. This is a blooper reel.
This is bad. This is a bad
We're
start.
not
Okay.
anything, right?
This
So,
start has character.
Gosh, sure. I do want to highlight this. Robert Romano says Frankie Through the Woods was such a touching story. Thank you.
Thank you.
Which
I
is
don't know where the hell to write.
Frankie, do you know where you are?
No.
Did you just wake up? I feel like I just woke you up.
Frankie,
He put the first link in his
higher than
DM.
I am?
I got two windows up and I don't know which one's which.
Okay. Yep.
I'm trying to figure it out.
So he's either higher than I am or he's having a boomer moment.
I don't do drugs. I am drugs.
All right, Dolly. All right.
I put these two pieces of blue tape, like, so I don't like have a little arrow, so I don't hit the Leaf Studio link by accident.
Oh, good. Oh, good. You put a little piece of blue tape that says "Don't touch this button" because you can't figure it out otherwise.
We are proud of you for adapting, Will. Good job.
It's fantastic. All right, so dead ends. This was Will's topic. This was one of his suggestions. So I'm gonna kick it straight off to Will. What is it about this topic that made you want to talk about it today?
Oh, well, because I think it's linked to writer's block, and I also think that a lot of people who watch these kinds of streams are trying to struggle for an idea, and they think that there's something wrong with them because they can't just sit down and puke something out their first try.
Yeah.
And I think it's like an entrepreneur. For every successful company you hear about, there's been 10 failures.
Right.
So I think it's nice. It would have been nice for me to know that one of my favorite writers, they've got notebooks full of crap that they went nowhere on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we all sit down. We have a great idea. We either not in the right place mentally, or we're not smart enough to do our own idea. We get started, and it just will not click together.
Right.
Either it's in the wrong medium, or, like I said, you're not in the right place, with your age. But something happens where it just won't work. It's a cool idea, and you put it in a drawer. Maybe you come back to it. Maybe you never do. But you always think about it, or it informs something. The dead stuff informs something more alive that'll come later.
Yeah. It's all grist for the mill. It all eventually comes out again, because an idea that didn't necessarily work in this dead end can totally work in this little offshoot of a story you're telling now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
Never throw anything away. Ever. Never throw anything away. At least I don't.
I try not to, but I'm gonna be real honest. It's really hard not to. It's really hard
to what? Not throw it away?
Yeah.
Well, do you delete it, or do you put it in a little file in your computer that says stuff? Like, what do you do with it?
There's a lot of intentional not saving.
Really?
And then there's a lot of, so I actually do a lot of writing when I'm at my shitty second job that feels like it's sucking the lifeblood from me, because I hate it.
Or the job?
The job feels like it's sucking the lifeblood from me. So I lock myself in a room that no one else can get in, and then grab a Post-it note and start writing. And after like 5 or 6 Post-it notes, I'll put them in my pocket, forget that they're there, wash them, and then they're gone.
Start taking pictures of them.
I can't until I leave. Like if I could take a picture of it, I could just as easily take it out of my pocket and not wash it. But yeah, so it's a different world when you work someplace where you literally cannot have your phone with you. So there is no technology. There is no taking notes on my phone. There's no taking a picture. It's and I'm cleaning, so notebooks and stuff. I'd have to have a small notebook. It'd have to be in a cargo. I always make sure I had those cargo pants on so I could put them there. Right. So it's an interesting hurdle, I guess. Like, I wrote something that I really, really liked the other day, and I don't know where it went. So I'm like, fuck, it was such a good start.
I pulled like an Alexander Solzhenitsyn. I had like toilet paper I was writing on once in a job, and because I had access to nothing else, it was like a gulag, so I had to like hide it somewhere. We were in some employee meeting, and I was sitting by the registers, and like, shit, I have an idea for something, and this is boring, so I found like the receipt paper in the drawer, and I just wrote down the receipt paper like while they were talking about bullshit that I didn't care about.
Yeah.
And I ended up writing a quarter of my very first script during those meetings on receipt paper. Like seriously, like a goulash.
Hey, man, it's paper.
It's like the Marquis de Sade, I have to write it on toilet paper.
I mean,
I used to
whatever you got.
Yeah, exactly. I used to do sketches on, my meeting notes whenever I had to sit at a roundtable meeting and listen to people drone on about, scanners and, roles of labels. Anyway, yeah. I learned to draw with a ballpoint pen fairly well because of that. But you got to do something to entertain your mind, right?
I mean, it's true. And it's so weird where you can end up finding inspiration and things like that. And so that's actually something that I've noticed is when I'm doing shit that I hate, that I find frustrating or obnoxious, is when my brain is like, here's a whole bunch of ideas. And it's always when I can't write. Like, middle of scrubbing a toilet at job 2, and I'll be like, damn it, that's a really good opening. And I'm just like, someone have a pen. I'm going to dictate to you, write it on the roll of toilet paper. Like, we got the toilet paper that comes in actual paper. So I've ripped that off and written on the paper and just been like, I need to remember this, and then fold it up and put it in my pocket, and then I wash those pants. So happens all the time. It's very frustrating. You think I'd check my pockets more?
I was about to say, after a while, I learned to start checking my pockets so I didn't, destroy things.
It happens in waves. So I'll write in waves, and then I'll destroy one really good start. And then if I continue to write, then I check my pockets regularly, and then I stop writing for a while. So stop checking my pockets.
So you forget. Right.
And then it just starts all over again. It's great fun. it's
right,
like Hunger Games. Let's see what persists past the washer.
Hunger Game of thoughts.
Yes. It's horrible. So
I guess that's kind of your dead end. Your pocket is your dead end.
The pocket is where my ideas go to die. Is if I put it in my pocket, there's a 50-50 chance it's never coming back out. Unhinged has a good question. So he says, is it maybe a good idea to establish the beginning and how it ends, and then fill in the rest to avoid a dead end?
I mean, I think that all depends on the writer and like what their process is.
Yeah.
Like for me, I've got ADD. I've had it since I was a kid, and it helps me if I essentially create a plot diagram of things that I want to happen in my story, and then I establish my beginning, I establish my end, and then as I'm writing, if there are things that I want to change, I can do that and make annotations in my plot diagram, because I need that in order to kind of focus and get my scripts done. Because if I don't have that kind of structure, then I don't have a script. I have a run-on sentence that goes on for 12 pages.
Okay.
It all depends on what your process is, what you need to do creatively. I'm sure that everyone here has their own creative processes for when they write, what they like to do, little things that they do to help themselves. I like listening to music. I like having, as I said, I create my plot diagram to figure out what I want to do with my series, this, that, and the other. And, what I do isn't necessarily going to be what Luke does, or what Will does, or what Frankie does, or what Shae does. And so I don't feel like there's really a definitive yes or no there. If that's something that you do and it helps, then that's the answer you're looking for. But there's no one way to go about this, in my opinion, because everybody's kind of got their own process.
Well, like for me, I know how I want a lot of things to end. But when I start writing, my dead ends come in the middle. They don't come at the end of the story, because I know how I want the story. I generally know about where my story is going to start and where I hope it ends up. The dead end for me is in the middle bit on getting from A to Z.
How do I connect these two pieces?
That's actually the most crucial part.
Exactly.
That's where the conflict is.
Right.
And that's the meat of the story.
Well, that's where you can tell when people had when they ran into a brick wall and then they threw whatever they could in there to try and fix it. Like, so I had mentioned this before and I couldn't remember the person's name. R.A. Salvatore. So
yeah,
he's read R.A.
Bridget
Salvatore.
Dragonlance, yeah, Dragonlance series.
Everyone loved Bridget the Warden.
Right.
As a kid.
He's got a real problem when he writes certain stories where he'll get to a point and he realizes he's written himself into a corner. And so somebody just magically has an amulet that gets them out of the situation.
Deus Ex Machina.
And it'll be something that was never mentioned beforehand. And he'll just bring it up and there he goes. And now, oh, look, I fixed it. I'm not in a dead end anymore. And it's some of the laziest, shoddiest ways to get your characters out of a dead end.
That's literally how I thought about Kingdoms of Amalur when I was playing that, also written by R.A. Salvatore.
Well, that's the thing is what should happen when you find yourself in that situation is go back and see if there's a place where you could correct that error. Mm-hmm. And for a lot of what Salvatore does, it'd be really simple because he could just mention this motherfucking amulet in like chapter 2.
Right.
And then maybe harken back to it in chapter 8. And then when it has to be used in chapter 27, it's not fucking out of the blue. But no.
Or at least create a story.
He doesn't have time for that shit.
Right.
Well,
and
no,
it's
like, I actually think that's a fantastic point. There was a book that there was a comic I was reading a while ago, and one of my biggest problems with it was there came a point where I was reading the second volume of it, and there came a point where the character appeared with a weapon that I didn't remember ever being brought up before, kind of like what you were just talking about, Shae. And I went back, and it was briefly mentioned in the previous thing, but then that character that comes back with it, he disappears for a little bit, and then all of a sudden he has it, and there's a kind of caveat on being able to use this item. And my big criticism for that is that what you should have done is you should have done a side story with that character to showcase them getting that thing, explaining why only this person can use it, what the caveat is, and so that way you build up that suspense for the reader, right?
Give a backstory for it. Give a reason,
and so
make it connected to the world. Otherwise, it's just this like thing tacked on.
It's the same thing with what you're saying with Salvatore. It's like I'm blanking on what it was in Kingdoms, because I loved Kingdoms of Amalur. I had a great time with the game, and then by the time I got to the end of the game, I was very frustrated because he had kind of pulled some silly shenanigans with that. But like the way that I feel that you best handle this is if you come up into that dead end and you want to introduce an element that is effectively a kind of Deus Ex Machina or a plot device that is the literal only purpose it serves to get us to the next stage of the story is make it tangible in the world, make the readers invested in it, and take the time.
Well, but that's the thing is, it's when you find yourself in a dead end for something like that. If it's something that's easy to fix, as in, I've got a specific trinket, amulet, power, or something like that that needs to come out. You need to work on making sure that it doesn't feel like it just popped out of the blue, even if you did mention it. What were you going to say?
I got a good example of what you guys are talking about. Yeah. I don't know if you know much about the production history of Gladiator with Russell Crowe, the Ridley Scott movie.
Not a whole lot, no.
No, but I fell asleep in the movie theater when I went to go watch it.
When they were making that movie,
Gladiator.
I did too. I just
when they were
fell
actually
asleep
shooting
when people were talking.
That film, they had a huge problem with the third act of that movie, and they could not get it to work. No, that one came later. They could not figure out why Maximus does what he does and continues to do what he does when his family is dead already. It didn't make any sense it just didn't make any sense why he would continue what he's doing other than just being a bloodthirsty guy in an arena, right? They just could not make it work, and they had so many variations of it. But here's the thing. They didn't have any lightweight guys on that. They had John Logan writing that movie, and so these aren't like lightweight dudes, but then they were so close to it, everyone trying to make it work, and they were banging their heads against it that they couldn't see something very obvious. Was Maximus in the beginning of the movie wants to go home. But if you can't go home because they're dead, what do you do? So they hired this guy to get an opinion on it named, what was his name? David Franzoni. And he just said, hey, you know, he wants to die because he wants to go home and be with his family in the afterlife. And everybody went, what? Like it was like the most simple thing, but it was so perfect for the plot that they couldn't believe they didn't see it. It took just this guy going, hey, why don't we just say he wants to die to go to the afterlife, and because he wants to see his family, and that this thing with Commodus and the arena is sort of a sideshow. It's something that really doesn't really even matter because he wants to die anyways. It doesn't even matter if he kills Commodus. And it was very simple to go back and implant this desire for the afterlife in the movie. It was very simple. Just in the beginning, he's watching the bird. He's having the thought of the hands through the
walking through the fields of barley and what have you.
Right, like it's very simple. Just plant those. It took 2 seconds to do, and boom, you've got your setup now. And that's an example of a dead end, but a very simple solution to a dead end that doesn't require a complete makeover of the movie, right?
Yeah.
It also shows the power of going back for the second draft. You know?
This was like the 45th, but this was a guy they just asked to, hey,
well, whatever.
They gave him the script as sort of like an afterthought. They said, do you have any? We're running into a brick wall with this.
And I think that's another thing that you just hit on there as well, is if you're heading a dead end, approach somebody else that you know that's invested in writing and what have you, and be like, look, this is how I want things to go. What are your thoughts? You know, every single time that I've hit one of the most useful things that I had when I was writing the first script for my 0 issue of Elysian Fields was I talked to my friends at work and I let them know what I was planning on doing. I talked about it and they just bombard me with questions that I'd have to answer about my project. And it really made me kind of like think about stuff from a different perspective than just being the writer, because you're actively engaging with someone that could potentially be your audience. And that helped me come up with some ideas for things that are going to happen later in the story that I have plotted out. You know, I feel that as important as it is for us, you know, creating our projects and everything like that, it's never a bad idea to ask for advice from another creative.
Right.
If you come to that point where you're hitting that dead end, where you're hitting writer's block, this, that, or the other, and you're just not sure where to go, get an outside perspective. Like it could be something as simple as that guy having that outside thing to like make his desire be getting to the afterlife. And that could be the thing that your story's missing, and it's just you're too close to it to see it.
Right. Everyone in the room's too close to it to see it, and they couldn't believe how simple the suggestion was.
Yeah, and it's crazy to think of Gladiator without that.
That's the movie. That's the heart of the movie.
Right. It's the entire purpose of the movie.
But that was an afterthought. That was them. That was like a thread that came much later, you know, while they were filming the movie.
And that's a really cool, like, I had never heard of that. Like, the big thing that I remember about the production of Gladiator was Oliver Reed, like the most badass death of all time, like mid-production, and that causing some issues because there were a few scenes that they hadn't shot with him yet.
They didn't have the ending of him.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Shit.
And plus, we lost Oliver Reed. And could you? And just as a side note, could you imagine like a rebirth of Oliver Reed at the time? Like he was like having a rebirth of his career with that movie. It was like, whoa, it's Oliver Reed.
I love, like, so growing up, one of my favorite movies was the old 1970s Three Musketeers with Oliver Reed, Richard Chamberlain, Michael York, Michael York, Charles Lee, Charlton Heston, and all of those stacked film. And Oliver Reed played Athos, and has yet to be matched. He was phenomenal. And so
mine was the werewolf in the Hammer film. Because he was in the Hammer werewolf movie.
I don't think I've seen that. I'll have to check that out.
It was the only werewolf movie they made from Hammer that he was the star. Takes place in Spain.
I'll have to go watch it. I have never seen that, so I will put that on my list.
I think it's called The Werewolf of Paris. I think I It's based on the novel The Werewolf of Paris. But I don't know if they called the Hammer film The Werewolf of Paris.
Okay, I'll put that down. I'm always down to see some more Oliver Reed and things.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's
seen
one of the
his
best
face
Hammer
in
movies.
Lots of things. I never knew that guy's name. Because you see him everywhere, but he
was a great
name.
support actor.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what a good support actor does.
I think to answer Unhinged Entertainment's question with the beginning and the ending. I mean, if you have one, I would write it down, of course. I mean, and if you have like the middle part is where you could, write your winding road, your up and your down. But if your ending, I think, is super climactic, yes, I would make sure your middle doesn't surpass it or outshine it. I mean, that's my take for to answer this question. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think that when it comes
there you go, Curse
to...
of the Werewolf.
Oh,
Sorry.
Curse of the Werewolf. Gotcha. There you go for everybody who was curious.
Interesting.
Nice.
Put that.
I think that's probably one of the hardest parts. So having a rough idea of where you want it to end, I think is really important, obviously, when it comes to writing your story, because if you don't know where you're trying to get, it's hard to get there. But maybe not being so stranglehold set on it going exactly a specific way, because I feel like the more restriction you put on you trying to write and be creative, the more likely you are to run into dead ends. Because you're going to get so narrow-minded that it has to go a certain way. And like what Frankie's saying is, you don't want everyone to get really, really excited by the middle of your book and then have your end just kind of fizzle.
Right. There's actually a fantastic example of that in How I Met Your Mother.
People always remember the beginning of a story and they remember the end of a story. They'll remember some of the middle, but the beginning and the end are always the most impactful parts of the story.
This is what I'll say. They remember specifics about the beginning and the end. They remember how the middle made them feel.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
So as long as you have the right kind of emotion and passion and feeling that goes through the middle of your story, as long as your beginning and your end are solid, that's what makes a good story. But if you have a middle that is super, super climax heavy and then your ending feels like it droned on, then what that basically means is you were supposed to have ended your book in the middle. Right. And if you still had more story to tell, then that beginning part was the setup for your next book.
That was the problem that George Lucas ran into with Star Wars. He took the end of his trilogy and he put it at the end of his first film. So he didn't have an end for Return of the Jedi, but to just copy and paste it and say, I'm just going to do it again. Yeah. He didn't have a good ending. He already used it up, blowing up the Death Star. The
only exception is an Oreo cookie because the middle's the best part. But other than that...
Well, but see, it depends on how you eat that Oreo cookie.
That's true.
I take that out.
I eat the middle of the end.
When I could eat Oreo cookies. I love them.
Stay the hell away from the double dark chocolate Oreos. Oh my!
Yeah, dark chocolate Oreos.
Yes, double dark. Oh my god, double stuffed dark chocolate Oreos. I don't buy shit like.
Go get some dark chocolate Oreos and show us.
What's wrong with them?
Yep. As soon as I said that, it was gone.
What's wrong with them?
They're good. They don't last long. I ate the entire fucking package in 2 days. That's what's wrong with them.
When we were young, and you could when you were 19, you could take a whole bowl, like a big bowl, and fill it with milk, and then put your Oreos in there and eat it like cereal, and you don't gain a pound.
No, I can't say I ever did that.
I did.
Oh my god!
The dark chocolates now. When did that happen?
That might explain why you're having the problems you are now.
Exactly.
Just a thought.
Hence.
What'd you say,
They
Odin?
have double stuffed of the dark chocolates. I've seen the standard dark chocolate ones, and I've had them. They're solid, but I didn't realize they had double stuffed of those son of bitches.
Oh, yeah. No.
Oh, no.
This is down here in the South. They like to eat, and there's people that like their double stuffed Oreos down here, sir.
And they like to steal copper pipes.
They like to steal copper pipes everywhere.
I usually call the meth heads pipe thieves.
Well, they got to smoke out of something, right?
Yeah. Or say, hey, man, you get a lot of money
2
for
days,
some copper
Amish.
pipe.
I'm always so impressed with how you manage to just throw in the most random of topics. Well,
okay, yeah.
Like how did we just get on meth heads? How did that? We just talked about copper pipes and meth heads when we were talking about dead ends. I don't know how you did it.
I'm in Oregon. There's a lot of meth heads, so you need to get inspiration from somewhere. So you look around, you see them breaking into job sites and stealing copper pipe. You're like, okay, how can I use that?
How can I use that in my?
How can I utilize that? Oh, right,
Meth heads and copper pipes are going to show up in the next Black Flag.
Oh
Yeah.
my
Confirmed.
gosh! I can't.
There is pharmaceutical stuff in there.
We'll see a meth head running away with a copper pipe while a demon's like coming out of the ground. I can see it now.
There's demons in it.
Well, duh. Hellfire.
I'm hoping the middle of Black Flag isn't going to be too overwhelming for you guys.
Overwhelming how? You can't just drop that and then be like,
no, he's
Easter egg, and then I'm not saying anything.
No. He's being a cock tease.
If you go to Indiegogo and you back Black Flag,
Yes.
sooner rather than later, you will have exactly what I'm talking about, and you can confirm it.
I actually got my chance to finally do that here this past week. I was very excited.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Like I had a whole backlog of stuff, and there was just a lot of stuff going on, and it didn't help that work had everyone take COVID tests, and when I had to go do mine, it was Memorial Day weekend, so the lab was shut down for a day, and so everything got backlogged. I lost 4 days of work, and they already cut our hours by 2 days a week.
Wear the mask. Wear the mask.
I'm fine. I don't have a single trace of it. But it was just everyone had to go get one because we do security on a government site, so it's like a whole thing of they're crossing T's, dotting I's, and making sure that everyone's good to go and working on shift. So like I didn't have any money to really work with, and then I had a whole bunch of other stuff going on, and so finally I got I had done a little bit of overtime, and so I had money to work with, and oh man, it felt good. I backed your book, Black Flag. I'm really excited for that. Eudaimonia, and a few
Black
other
and white cover or the colored cover. Which one did you get?
I got both. I did I got the signed copies of both. I was like, I'd been meaning to back the book for a while. Fragile obviously speaks for itself, and I knew that you wrote it, so I was like, I guess I can throw it.
It's a team effort, we don't. But Shae doesn't help because she's always introducing something interesting. I'm like, oh, you son of a, like, okay, you're breaking my pockets, man.
It's all good. These things happen. But yeah, no, it was really exciting. I was really happy to finally get on some campaigns that I've been meaning to for a hot minute.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, it's a good time. And then we have exciting little bit. We've got our book is finishing printing and should be here at the end of the week or in the weekend. So I'll start fulfilling Elysian Fields issue 0's first wave here very soon, which is
so
exciting. Yeah, we've been getting a lot of feedback from the digital tier. People really like it. Cool. Feels good.
I mean, I guess one of the reasons why I suggested this to Shae because I'm dusting off an old project that I'm hoping to get to next year once we're done with our flagship books, and I'm just kind of putting it aside and writing notes. And I was kind of thinking back to the process of that book and why it ended up in the drawer. And it had its genesis back in my 20s when I was working in Hollywood. I used to work at Paramount, and then after that, I worked for a very, very well-known screenwriter, and he kind of took me on board as his protege, trying to teach me how to write. And I had pitched him this idea, and he really liked it, and he possibly wanted to get it sold or produce it. but it was sort of my chance to go, hey, I can impress this guy. You know, I mean, when you have a mentor, you really want to impress them.
Exactly.
And
Right.
I chose this idea to write as a script, but the problem was I became sort of conflicted. Is this a audition piece, or is this actually something I'm really going with and being creative about? And what ended up happening, and this is a dead end, is I chose the wrong medium for this idea. I ended up writing a 400-page script. And if you know anything about scripts, that's 400 minutes.
Yep.
You
Yeah.
know?
A minute.
And so what happened was like I was trying to cut it down and cut it down and cut it down, and it turned out that I had 2 acts that were decent, with the third act having to be wrapped up in 10 pages.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up self-destructing my own book because I chose the wrong medium to try to make it blossom in, and I wasn't smart enough to do it. And I pulled it out recently, and I was reading it, and I'm like, this is good stuff, except that this last act doesn't work. And now that I'm doing it in a comic medium, it has the room to breathe. And now the avenues are opening up when they were closed. When I was writing as a script, it became contrivance after contrivance after contrivance to make it fit into the restrictions of time. And I guess dead ends can really come with the medium you're choosing to do it in, right? And you just want to force it into that medium. And I'm like, this,
Right.
and it derailed me. It probably ruined my chances with the screenwriter because I was trying to make this work. And now it's blossoming because now I have 6 issues that I could do it over, right? But
That's
I
awesome.
think you got to ask yourself: is this a novel? Is this a comic? Is this a movie? Is this animation? You know, I think that can screw you up too, is having kind of a genre category error.
Are you running it as a comic right now? It's a comic right now?
It's going to be after we're done with the initial Incredible,
like with Black Flag and everything like that,
and the other flagship books that are coming after that.
The comic book is also like, it's like storyboarded out for you too, so that's pretty cool. It's like 2 birds with 1 stone.
Right. And like I said, now it can get out of those dead ends because it had the space to do it in.
Right.
Yeah, you've got more time to tell a story. I mean, nowadays it would you could also do it as like a Netflix series or whatever. Because the reason why everything is moving to TV right now is because they have more time to tell the story. And with a movie, you have a maximum of about 3 hours to tell your fucking story. If you can get people to sit for that fucking long.
It's crazy that you mentioned that, because that's what they're looking at doing to the Snyder Cut as well. And I honestly think that might be the greatest decision ever made for Zack Snyder, because that man cannot pace a film.
And it's going to TV.
Listen. That dude can make a kick-ass film if he's got a comic book to use as a fucking storyboard. If you let that motherfucker write a goddamn story, you are going to end up with a clusterfuck like Sucker Punch.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. No, and I'm right.
He can get the shots. He can't tell a story to save his ass. He can get those shots, though.
I remember I went to go see that with a woman, and all she kept saying afterwards was, "So much rape."
Sucker Punch is a really rough film.
She's like, there's so much rape.
Like that's the thing, is that I feel that we're starting to go back to this episodic format, because honestly, I feel that people enjoy it a bit more. If you look at like back when a lot of this stuff started, it was people listening to episodic radio shows, you know, and
the shadow knows
exactly. And there's a charm to an episodic format where you can, leave an audience hanging on a cliffhanger, and it doesn't feel like you're baiting for a sequel. It's going to be resolved in the next episode. You're in a storyline, right? Whereas if you try to do something like that in a film, you like the immediate criticism you're going to get is that sequel bait, right? Like you're trying to draw the audience in to make sure that your producers give you more money to make another film, rather than trying to just make an ending that wraps up the story you're trying to tell in this medium. And so, like, I genuinely believe that that's one of the big reasons why things are moving back to this episodic format. Oh man, Unhinged just said a good way to fix that end is to
Yeah, I was
kill
thinking
it.
the same thing that Luke. I know for a fact that Steven Spielberg got himself out of that with the bomb.
Stephen King, yeah, in The Stand, yeah, he was losing his manuscript. He was like, oh shit, I'm losing my book. I'm 600 pages into this motherfucker, and I'm losing my book. And then he went out for a walk and was like, oh shit, I'll just kill half the fucking cast.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Hell
because
yeah.
And he jump
juggling all these characters, and they've all got these intricate backstories, and they're all unique and whatnot. But it was too much. He couldn't handle it all, so he axed half the cast.
Yeah, you
And
got
then
the
it
George
leaned
R. R.
it
Martin
down.
situation where it just bloomed into billions of characters, and you couldn't manage.
George R. R. Martin just seems to like to kill motherfuckers. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
Well, I mean, he likes to like. I feel that I think the
Absolutely
big
does.
defense I have for Martin on that is that he at least concludes a narrative per character. Like none of the characters.
I'll give him that.
Well, we don't know yet.
That's fair. We haven't seen Winds of Winter in the. I'm blanking on what he's calling the last book, but like. For the most part, the people that died while it was like, oh no, I really liked that character. Like you knew Robb Stark was going to die. The moment that he went, the moment that he made the decisions he made, you're like, okay, yeah, I like Robb, but you got dumb. Like
anybody idealistic in those stories dies.
Well, yeah, but
anybody
like
idealistic.
Even when smart people were getting killed, it's like. The whole thing would be have they served the purpose of this of their narrative arc, and and this even goes down to like smaller characters like Arya's sword instructor from the first book. Everyone really liked him.
I wanted him to come back. I was like, what the hell happened to that guy?
Yeah, but he dies. But like if you think about it,
we don't know
everything that he needed to.
We don't know what happened to him, but she left the room and all we hear is him fighting with the guards.
Yeah, but you hear him kind of scream. I could have sworn in the books, like you see it, they start the fight, and as she's running away, you kind of hear him.
I thought in the books she turned back and saw him get run through, but I don't remember.
Sworn that she just hears the fight and she runs.
That man is effectively dead. To the narrative.
You can't, but see, with Martin, you can't ever say that somebody's dead because I swear, like someone could be dead and they could come back 2 books later. You don't know,
like Lady Stoneheart or whatever, and
like White Walkers and shit. Like they just.
I completely get what you're saying, but like from the standpoint of what, like he set up Arya's journey. That guy was from Bravos, so Arya wanted to go to Bravos. That was like her big goal was. Get away from everything and go to Bravos, finish her training, and then she meets Jaqen D'Gar, who introduces the concept of the Faceless Men, and that continues to build her incentive to want to go to Bravos. So like these things are like with Martin, yeah, he kills characters, but I feel that when the character dies, if you look at it, they complete a narrative circle. It's not like as much as it sucks, it's not completely done for shock value, which is something that there are people that have tried to do the Martin thing where they're killing characters left and right, but they don't do that. They don't handle it as well because they don't do what Martin does. They don't complete these characters' arcs. It's literally just this character that you liked is now dead. Deal with it. And,
I hate that. Give me a reason.
I think something though, guys, with Martin that's important that's led to his big problems, which is the proliferation of these POV characters. Because remember, it's not merely that he's killing these guys for shock value, is that he's got to cull these POV characters. If you notice, each book, it exponentially grows.
Yeah.
Because now we're in a situation where you've got a mechanic where your plot can only move by someone who sees, hears, or is in the presence of the plot, right?
Yeah.
So in order to cover this multi-continental story, you now have to have a character planted all over the place or has to hear something going on, So it gets really unruly. And that's why I think he's having a problem because he's mushroomed this story that he can't contain it. He can't contain it without having a billion POV characters.
I think
this is why I don't like to write from POV because it gets
worked really well
after
the
a
first
while.
one. but
Sure.
great in the first one.
It'll work really well for a little bit, but then you have to find contrived ways to get a POV of what's going on, and you can't just transfer to different characters without introducing this character first, so you know this character, and that's why you're hearing their POV. I don't. POV only works if you keep the narrative from that character's perspective the entire fucking time.
And keep
the
small.
dressing files. The dressing files are a perfect example of this.
Like a small cast of maybe 10 characters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would work great in the Iliad, for example. That would work perfect in the Iliad because it's contained.
Don't worry, Shae, I won't go off on a tangent.
Well, I'm just saying that's a good example.
I will find a way to mute you
because you would have. You'd have all these narrative antennas there, but they're in the same proximity with each other.
Well, the other advantage that the Iliad has is that as much as their point of view parts of the story, it's still kind of told from an almost third-person omniscient standpoint, right? Mm-hmm. So, I think the other big issue that Martin has is that these POV characters, it's not just like you're narrating the things that these characters are going through. No, you are in the shoes of Tyrion Lannister. You are in the shoes of, Catelyn Stark or Arya or anything like that. Like, their thoughts and everything like that. You switch around between characters in the Iliad, like Diomedes, Achilles, Odysseus, Menelaus, all of them. But at the end of the day, you don't get like a log of Achilles talking about his rage towards himself because he got his best friend and lover killed, and then the how that blame shifts and when he realizes that everything that he's done in the last few books is literally pointless, and he's just mad at himself, and he's now has a grieving father here, and he has to kind of come to terms with what he's done.
Right. So I'm just going to interject because I feel the tangent. Unhinged has a question that I've actually been wanting to get to, but you guys got off for a while, and I wanted to see where it was going to go. He wants to know, what's the longest it's taken some of you to fix a dead end?
Start.
So I have dead ends that I've never fixed, so I guess eternity so far.
Infinite.
Continuous.
As fast as it takes you to erase it.
So in other words, Frankie just erases everything and starts over.
No dead ends.
Honestly, there's times where I'll write something and I hit a wall and I go, well, I have no idea where I'm going to go with this, and so I walk away from it. And usually the amount of time to fix it is the amount of time it takes for me to realize that I wrote something. Because I'll completely forget that it exists. When I stop working on it, I squirrel so bad that I forgot that I was even working on something. And I'll go back through old notebooks or try to clean up some digital files on my computer. And I'm like, the fuck is this? And I start reading. And I was like, well, that's really good. That's right. I didn't finish it because of this. And I was like, wait, if I just did, okay, no, we're good now. And it'll be like 4 years later, I'll manage to fix something. But
I have notebooks like that.
That gives you perspective on it, though. What wasn't working for you back then, might work for you now.
Right.
This is why I don't throw anything away.
I think that really it can take years, and there's been times where I've written something, and so for things like poetry, dead ends in poetry are real easy to see. Because it'll be when, especially if you're trying to do iambic pentameter and all of a sudden you can't come up with a rhyme. So it's usually really easy to be like, well, I'm now at a dead end. I can't use this word. And those will take me about 10 minutes to fix max. But that's because I have gotten real good at thesaurus.com. Thank you very much, military. So one skill that they've taught me very well, because we, like I said in a previous one, you can't say that you led. You had to lead, champion, create, honcho, don't ever say honcho, but all of these things to say the same thing but make it sound different.
Whose Siri just went off?
That was mine. I was checking through some messages.
I'm sorry, we're boring you, Odin?
No, not that at all. It's been a very long
week. It's you, Shae.
that
Hold
I
on,
really needed
hold
to look at. I could have gotten.
Will had to go real quick, so I'm just kidding.
I must have hurt his feelings. I'm sorry, guys.
No, you didn't hurt his feelings. He decided I was the reason that you were so bored to check your messages, so he went backstage for a second to have a think.
If I don't insult you at least once, I don't feel like I've impressed a woman.
You already insulted. You've insulted me several times. So
I got to get at least one oppressed woman a day.
Oh man!
You referred to me as woman.
Oh, you said oppressed, not impressed. Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
I don't try to impress
Sorry.
you.
Yeah,
He's not
of course
trying.
not.
He is. He's not trying to impress me.
I'm sitting here, aren't I?
Bad.
Wow.
We're just.
How are you today, Narcissa? Huh?
He's
How's
backstage.
that
That's
mirror?
where he is. That's how he is.
Okay.
There he is.
I was checking my pool of water I keep next to me.
Yeah. Good. Are we scrying?
He's all about it. He's all about being that guy.
Oh, okay. Another great question. So, Stat Zero wants to know, what are your cooldown processes when you're too close to something and you need to relax, step back, as well as sometimes, as we all sometimes have to do, what happens to get you back into the zone?
Take a shower.
Go for a walk.
Take a shower, man. That always, for some reason, there's the steam or something. Just
No, it's the running water. Running water will sever ties with any continuing energy. So if you're feeling stressed out, your anxiety or whatnot, go take a shower.
I've written
the
like
running
essays
water
in the
will
shower.
cut the ties with all that energy.
Yeah, man. I don't know. I just start talking to myself in the shower, and it just resolves itself. I don't know. Yeah, I guess you're right. It's the soothing running water.
Yeah, it is. It does things to us, you know. Plus, you know, the shower is like one of those places where it's just you, you know, you and your thoughts, and you think about those arguments and the things you should have said, you know, this, that, and other.
That's
so,
true.
Yeah.
I just want to say we owe Frankie some kind of a writing award now, because he said he solved an age-old problem for poets. Lozenges rhymes with oranges.
Good man. That's
kind of a slant rhyme, but sure, I'll allow it.
And I was like,
not phonetically, as past Master Dan has said.
hey man, forced rhyme is still a rhyme.
Ass titty. What?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, for me, usually I go and do something else. So when I hit into a mode where I am having a hard time writing, I go do something else that is still kind of creative. So I'll go and sketch. I'll have you know, I did not put Will anywhere. He did this to himself. Anyway.
Well, most of Will's problems are his own fault. So
I gotta do a bio break. Excuse me.
Okay.
That's my World of Warcraft jargon.
That was classic. I like that.
It's a bio break. That's amazing. Anyway, I usually go and do something else creative, because it's frustrating to me when I can't write, and I still have an intense desire to be creative, but I try and do it in a different way. So if writing isn't working, which is a little bit more abstract, then I'll try something that's more hands-on. Working on a cosplay, sculpting, painting.
Yeah.
Sometimes
I'll go do dishes. I'll go vacuum the floor. Full laundry. Just something mindless.
Very rude of me.
Just something mindless. Something to just completely get me out of that headspace.
Right. Or something that's really repetitive. So something that you can do, like I bedazzled my mic stand. I blame Dan for that. That was his fault. Because I
totally.
That's kind
had no desire on your own to bedazzle anything. It's all the bunny's fault.
I have a pound of rhinestones that stare at me, and Dan said you should totally bedazzle all of the things, Shae. And I went, well, this is here.
Mildly encouraging. Yeah, okay.
You know what?
But
I'm just saying.
Not the bedazzling bit, but I definitely agree with, like, what I usually do is I just kind of try and do something else, whether it's writing something else, whether it's I draw a little bit, or I go read a book.
See, and I can't if I'm having a hard time writing one thing, I can't switch gears to write another thing. because then I get pissed off if I start to write something else and it goes well. I get pissed off about the first thing and I obsess on it. And so
I don't have that like there's like I have a lot of shit that goes through my head all at once. Like that was something that actively when I was a little kid I had to take speech therapy for, because everything would just go through my head so quickly that I wouldn't be able to get it out well. And I would
That's
have
why
to
I smoke
hammer
weed.
and everything, and it comes out sometimes. But like, so when I like if I'm having an issue writing one thing, like for instance, the other day I was writing in the script for my next addition to Elysian Fields, and I got to a point where I didn't hit a block, but I didn't have anything else that I could say in this script. So I started working on another project that I've been kind of cooking up and what have you. And so I worked on that for a bit. And then today I came back and I wrote like 4 more pages in my my script for Elysian Fields. And I felt good with it. Like so for me, like, and I said, as I said at the beginning of this, everyone's got their own creative process for how to handle a lot of this stuff. And so I think that the important thing to take away here for everybody is like, you've got to find the stuff that really works for you. And I think that's the most important thing is to realize that no, it doesn't matter if you're a Pulitzer Prize winning writer or what have you. Everybody hits these dead ends. And everybody has a process of dealing with it. It's just finding that organic process to yourself.
And that only comes from writing.
Exactly.
It only comes from doing the thing.
Exactly. So like you need just even if you think it sucks, even if you think it's the worst thing you've ever written, do what you can to finish it.
I always feel that way about artwork. A lot of the stuff we talk about on this show, I also relate to artwork. So like what you're saying right now, sometimes shit just doesn't look right, but just get it out anyway. So
yeah,
continue.
No, I think that sums up perfectly. Is it just you need to get out there, you need to get your story down, even if it's complete, even if you think it's complete trash, write it down, read it to yourself. If you think there's even a potential of somebody else enjoying it, workshop it around, send it to a few people that you know and trust, their opinions of. That's honestly the best thing you can do, I feel.
I think that's another thing that a lot of people kind of undersell is the value of having someone else's perspective.
Yes.
And people's perspective who maybe doesn't like your particular genre that you're writing or isn't really big on your medium.
Not your target audience.
I love sending stuff to people who hate the kind of shit I'm doing because generally speaking, they're going to be the most brutal. And then I'll send it, but I send it to people who are my target audience because ultimately their opinion is what's going to matter the most. But if I can bridge the gap between the two, that's always kind of my sweet spot because I want to be able to bring more people into a medium and do it without it feeling like I'm holding people hostage and forcing them to read books that I write or poems or whatever. But getting various perspectives on things and, from people that have different walks of life, different backgrounds. And just because somebody comes back to you with a shit ton of criticism and they say they don't like something, that doesn't mean that you have to go and change it. You take what their criticism is, what part of your audience or not they are, and then go, okay, is this like, if I were to give my shit to an SJW, they're going to come back and tell me I'm brainwashed by the patriarchy. Fantastic. If that's what you got from it, then I'm doing my job because you're full of shit and I think you're crazy. So you thinking that I'm brainwashed isn't going to do anything like negative for me. But if you come back and you say, wow, this was such a moving piece and so enlightened, I'm going to have to go back and reread that and make sure that I didn't fuck something up somewhere because you're not the person that I want to be saying that. And maybe I managed to transcend that gap, but I'm going to definitely be very critical of whatever I wrote and then give it to other people who are more my mindset and be like, what do you get from this? Because if you come back and tell me it's SJW swill, I obviously fucked something up. That's what I was going for, you know? So it's getting those varying perspectives can show you potential red flags or things that you maybe wouldn't have seen otherwise, but it also really helps with dead ends, because I've sent things off and people have gone, well, why did you do this? And it's like, because it sounded like a good idea. What would you have done? And be like, well, that seems really like repetitive or stupid. Maybe, you know, I really wanted to know more about when they went into this forest, and that was a really brief moment. You go, okay, well, maybe there's something more I can do with the forest to fix this kind of hunt that I'm on that I can't seem to get past. Like other people could kind of shine a light on those pieces that they thought were really interesting that maybe you just kind of brushed off, and it can take you in a slightly different direction, but fix a lot of your writing issue.
Outside perspective helps you see the forest from the trees, because as we've said multiple times, when you're like in the thick of it, when you're in the throes of passion writing something, you know, you can't see the forest from the trees because you're too close to it. That's why stepping away and doing something else helps so much, and getting an outside perspective helps even more. On writing, Stephen King talks about IR, ideal reader. Like we all write a story for an ideal reader, somebody like that, you know, okay, I'm going to write this. I'm going to put this in the story because I think ideal reader will get a kick out of this. So we all have somebody that we are writing a story for. And the sooner that we can identify who we are actually writing this story for, who we're trying to impress, then, you know, if that person's alive, you can have them read it and see if you get the reactions you're looking for. If they're, you know, not real, then you have to imagine their reactions to things. But getting an outside perspective is always a good thing, because you know, it's your stuff. It's your baby. I mean, you don't want to kill your darlings. You want everything to be in there. So you need somebody to give you like that doesn't work, you know, or maybe retool this because this is confusing to me, or just with the questions that they ask, you know, you'll get the point that they didn't understand that this character was going through this in this part of the, you know, the scene or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
But make sure you write for yourself first. I mean, don't write.
Well, I'm always writing shit that I'm going to be entertained by. But you can be your own ideal reader.
No, I agree with you. Like majority people who like your stuff are like-minded people like yourself. So, genre-wise and story-wise. So yeah, I mean, I agree.
Right. Well, I mean, you know, when you're writing something, you know, we have people that we know that will pop into your head, and you'll be like, yeah, I bet when they read this, they'll think this shit's cool.
Yeah.
You know, we all have like a few people like, all right, you know, this might trip somebody out. You know, it's your writing. You're writing for yourself. But at the same time, you're like, all right, you know, my homie's going to get a kick out of this.
Yeah, there's a target audience for everything. I feel that if you're writing something that you're not that you're not passionate about, you're not writing the story that you're meant to be writing.
Right.
You're being disingenuous. Art is a form of expression. Writing is a form of art. And, you know, as when it comes down to that, if you're writing something and you don't have that passion, if you're writing something and it's not for you, then what are you doing? Because at the end of the day, that story that you're telling should be an expression of yourself.
Right.
You know,
that's where I might get into a dead end. Like, what if I get hired or you get hired to write something that's not your lane? I mean, that's
honestly.
Yeah.
If I were put in that position, Frank, I'd probably try and get a draft of it out and try and make it my thing. But if I couldn't do it, I'd be honest. I'd just be like, look, man, I appreciate the vote of confidence. I really do. But this really isn't my cup of tea. And I think that's something that needs to be done a lot more in the creative industry.
Yeah.
You got guys that do, and I can think of like a few right off the top of my head that get hired for jobs.
Yeah.
That you can tell when you read that they're not into it.
Yeah.
And yeah, like, you know, everybody wants to make that money and you know, provide and give themselves themselves and their families the best lives possible. But like, if it's not if you don't feel connected to the story that you're writing, your audience isn't going to either. They're going to notice.
So like, do you try your best and then go, well, I don't know, and then if you don't like it, yeah, I think I'd come clean and say not for me. But
yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I met I got a chance to, before COVID and everything happened. There was a writer, comic writer that was at my local store that has a very controversial run of a very popular character. I won't go into that, but I've read
which one? Sorry, continue.
I've read some of his other stuff, and I really liked some of his other stuff. And he had also handled a run for a different popular character that was, in my opinion, fantastic in comparison to the one that he got all the flack for. And so I talked to him about it. I was like, so what's the deal here? And he's like, well, if I'm going to be honest, I liked writing character B a lot more. And I was like, yeah, it shows. And I get that, you know, writing characters like those, it's like a once in a lifetime thing, and you feel like if you're given that opportunity, how could you pass it up? But I feel that there also comes a time where you're writing that script or you're writing your story, and it's just not speaking to you. It's not
exactly
where you need to just be like, look, man, I appreciate it. This is such a fantastic opportunity, but I can't do, like, you have a duty to yourself as an artist. You have a duty to the reader to put out a story that oozes with passion.
Well, something that people are going to be entertained, something that people are going to be willing to plunk down their hard-earned cash on.
Exactly.
You know, something that is escapism that helps them enjoy life, you know, because that's what we're doing. We're reading stuff to just temporarily walk out of reality and into another. That's what stories are for, right? That's what they do. They take us somewhere else. And if we're going to pay money to do that, it might as well be fucking entertaining.
Yeah, exactly.
And the more passionate the creator, the more entertaining the story. At least that's been my experience.
Yeah,
you know?
no, and that's one of the big things is, like, if you genuinely care about the story that you're putting out there, the audience is going to feel that. Even like, because, you know, and you're never going to impress. You're never going to get everybody. You know, there are going to be people that read your book, and no matter how great everyone else says it is, they're just not going to enjoy it as much. They're not going to do this, that, the other. But when you really care, it'll reach the people it's meant to, and you'll get that feedback.
Well, and I think another big thing that people need to realize is, so you're writing, when you write something, if you're not invested in it, there's no reason for you to be the writer.
Yeah.
So
well, it's going to come across.
If somebody approaches you for something that you genuinely are not excited about, like if Will wasn't genuinely interested in the characters in Black Flag and their story and everything that was going on, he would absolutely murder that entire franchise, because no matter how, the whole fake it till you make it kind of thing, that's not something that you can do very convincingly when you already don't have some kind of a connection. Even if it isn't the strongest connection in the world, you need to find something that connects you to those characters, that makes that relevant to you, that makes it matter to you. Otherwise, everything is going to be hollow and soulless, and everyone reading it is going to pick up on that, because writers, and granted, I'm on a very emotionally writing kind of place, because that's what fuels me, is emotion. So I like writing things based on how I want people to feel. But as a result, I am incapable of writing something if I can't feel something for it.
Yeah.
And I don't think that is a necessarily unique thing. I think that writers have to feel something to the craft that they're making in order for that to be a decent piece. Otherwise, it's going to come across as shit.
Hollow.
Very hollow.
Look at the current crop of mainstream comics.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I work in my local comic shop. This place has been here for 33 going on 34 years, right? I ask my regulars when they pick up their books, so what are you reading? What are you excited about? You know, how's this story? I've been hearing things. It's all right. I've been picking it up just because I have all of them. That is not the shit I want to hear. I want to hear, I'm picking this up because this character did this fucking happened, this story is cool, this is tying into this. Like, I want people to be excited about the shit they're reading. Right. And the shit that people are picking up, it's hollow because it feels like these writers do not care, one, about the characters, two, about the history and the legacy of these characters, and three,
Because they don't.
entertaining the audience. No, they don't.
Well,
they're using it as a stepping stone.
This is the same thing when we very first started having all of this intrusion that has come into mainstream comics. What started happening is you had people that, like I had said before, you had people that were diversity hires. You had people that were being hired to try and show that it's not just a good old boys club.
Yeah,
anyone can come in here.
Which never been. But
here's the dumb thing: is it's never been that. But you got people who were shouting very loudly and that were kind of scary with their threats, and so they said, "Okay, fine," and they started throwing bones out there, saying like, "All right, we're looking to writers." Mm-hmm. Well, here's the problem. Females that come into this industry, a lot of them are very charming and very good about saying that they can do X, Y, and Z. Right?
Sure.
Yeah. I read comics all the time. I love Supergirl. Oh yeah, that's great. What do you love about Supergirl? Well, she's always been cute and she flies and I really like it.
I like her boots.
And she's super.
Right. I like that she's a strong female character for everyone to go and get behind. And it showed me as a little girl, the second they start saying that kind of shit, it showed me as a little girl that women could be X, Y, and Z, right? Everybody goes, oh, wow, as a little girl, which means that this is something that you've been reading for all of this time. No, it doesn't. What it means is I'm really good at bullshit. Okay? I didn't start reading comics as a little girl. I started reading when I read She-Hulk and I picked her up because I said, you know what? As a little girl, this is what I wish I would have had. And then I picked it up and read it and said, I am so fucking happy I didn't read this as a child because this was a funny shit how that was handled. It would have taught me the wrong thing about how to be a woman. Because the particular one that I read, and I've bitched about this before and it's happening again, so buckle up.
Bring it. I've never heard this shit before. Give me.
I can't remember which one it is. I'll have to see if I can find my copy.
Sorry, chat. Sorry, everybody. Bring it.
This issue of She-Hulk specifically.
Yeah.
She had just broken up with her long-term boyfriend because she liked being the green goddess that she was. And she liked defending as She-Hulk, defending all of these superheroes in a court of law.
Right.
Her boyfriend didn't like that and wanted her to use, I forget what it is, but use her bracelet, whatever thing, to make her appear to be a normal person, a normal woman, not green, not massive, not strong, just average girl, right? Never average because she was fucking gorgeous as shit, but he wanted her to be that. So she dumps his ass because she's like, yeah, fuck you. I'm going to be what I want to be. And I was like, fuck yeah, this is amazing. We got through this whole thing and the whole thing was, I'm going to be who I am. I'm not going to hide from it. I'm proud of who I am and what I do. And what happens at the very end? He shows up. Baby, I was so wrong. Gets down on one knee and proposes. And that son of a bitch says yes. And everything just got undone. And we went all the way back. And now they're getting fucking married. And I was like, no. It was great up until the last 3 pages. If I could rip those out and they never happened, it would have been a great comic. But those last 3 pages undid it. The thing is a lot of these women that have gotten a chance to come into this industry don't deserve it. The ones who deserve it didn't get a chance because these bitches came in and took that spot when they didn't have the desire. They didn't have the knowledge because there's women in comics forever.
And Nascenti Louise Simonson, just to name two right off the top of my fucking dome. Like I've got novels that Ann Nocenti wrote about the X-Men, like Prisoner X. Like she did some amazing. She did the Long Shot series. Come on, like, and they did this because they liked the characters. They were involved with the characters. They cared about the legacy. If you go watch the documentary Claremont's X-Men, you can see how excited both Louise Simonson and Ann Nocenti are about telling stories with these characters. They're not there because it's cool. They're not there because it's the fucking thing to do. They're there because they want to tell fucking cool stories with these intricate characters that people fucking love.
A lot of this also has to do with I've been on a few streams with Randy Zimmerman. He's brought up a whole bunch of points that I hadn't even thought of. And one of his big things is that comics has always been treated as a secondhand narrative in the creative industry. It hasn't been respected as a literary form.
Right.
And so these people that have come in, they're not looking to make comics. They're looking to get a comic book deal that will allow them to eventually get on Netflix or Sci-Fi or this or that. And
They're
at the end
looking
of
for
the
their
day,
15 seconds of fame, and they're thinking that they're going to find it in a medium that is easier to break into and is predominantly male, which means that I'm going to be a special snowflake and I can stand out and look at how amazing I can be. And it's such a fucking atrocity, because as somebody who is growing and learning about this industry more and more every day, like Will every other day is like, hey, here's some new homework material for you, go read this book, go watch this documentary. I watched the Image documentary that he sent me today, and I was like, holy fuck. Oh gosh,
Image Revolution.
Yeah.
Was that the one from like the 90s?
No, it came out recently.
Okay.
Is that the one that Sci-Fi Wire got?
I remember they did
one that Dan's on.
I know that they did like a Todd McFarlane documentary back when Image like first came up and everything. That was about his career.
So this is basically about how Image got started, and you see so many interesting parallels to some of the stuff that's going on now, and you see so many interesting kind of aspects, like things we always talk about history repeating itself and things being cyclical, right? So you see it most easily and readily. A lot of people see it in things like, hey Vinny, what's up?
Hey, how we doing?
Hey, I know that guy.
Right. Anyway, you can see things like that really easily in things like fashion, because fashion tends to cycle through and come back around.
Yeah, I do.
And so when we're talking about things like how Image was created, you're talking about a group of people who were fed up with feeling like they were mistreated, like they didn't matter, like they didn't have a voice, like they didn't have any stake of their own in this industry. So what do? They break away from the big two and they come up as Image. They make their own thing. Now, granted, there's a lot of issues with doing that if you're not prepared. There's a lot of, you got to account for ego. You got to account for individuality and people wanting to go different directions with things. And that's ultimately been one of the struggles that Image has had since doing that. But it's very, very reminiscent to what is happening in CG, where people are saying we're sick of people telling us what we can and can't print, what we can and can't do, where we can and can't go. And so is breaking off, and they're creating their own brands, their own identities that they can then print their stuff under. And, CG is a way to try and collect all of those together. But now what are we having? We're having a whole bunch of people with personality issues that don't quite get along, and people that have different ideas of what direction things should go. And so now we're getting that fracture. It's the same thing that happened when Image first started up. There was a massive fracture, and people were saying, well, fuck you, I'm leaving. Okay, JK, I'm coming back. Okay, fuck you, I'm leaving again. Like it was a constant thing.
Yeah, you also had the whole thing of you had a few creators that joined Image initially that weren't very sure, were terrified about doing it, and had been company men for years. And they didn't like it as much of an opportunity as Image was. I feel that Comicsgate does have a bit more of the advantage of the members of Comicsgate that are there. They don't have the option really to go back to the big two. I mean, they probably could if they wanted to, but it would be very difficult and not worth their time. They make plenty of great books on their own, and they they're doing big things. But like you don't have anything where like you have someone like Jim Lee who
publisher. DC.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. I think the big difference with CG is the fact that these are people that don't have another place to go, and so come hell or high water, their brand is going to make it,
right?
Or they're going to have to just leave comics altogether, and that's where we're seeing a lot of the sink or swim moments. You're seeing people like we've got Frankie and Vinny. I mean, the two of you are fighting really hard to make sure that you're putting out good products, you're putting out good stories, you're putting out amazing art, and you're making such a good name for yourselves because you're putting in that work and you're putting in that drive and that effort.
It's the work in being professional, because that's the other thing that I'm seeing with a lot of this. I mean, yeah, I know most of it is through Twitter and YouTube, and people want to hear our voices, but I think there should be a level of professionalism.
Absolutely.
Completely agree.
Yeah, because I mean, it's crazy. If like the guys at Image, I'm not going to compare them to Image, what we're doing and what they did, because there is different stuff. And having worked for Todd,
of course,
and having worked for Todd,
it's not exactly the same, of course.
Yeah, I saw how he managed people, how he operated. It is a different level altogether, but it's about putting the work in. And I think that if there's a little bit more unity between creators, and more people helping one another, I think it's going to grow even better that way.
Absolutely.
But it's ego needs to be put on the back burner altogether. That's why I always put like #fans first, because stop and think why you're doing this. If it's just for money, or if it's just for his little flash in the pan thing, it's not going to work properly.
Right.
If you're in there to build something better, like you said, Shae, we're working damn hard. I work night and day. I go to sleep super fucking late because I'm just working nonstop, doing streams, helping other people out. You have to do that. You have to put the work in. And people really aren't doing that as much, at least not in the mainstream at all.
They're not.
Well,
they're putting it in.
And that's why people don't give a shit.
They know that they've got books that they're being paid to do. One of the truest things that I've ever heard from any YouTube reviewer was your boy Zach had said, when you're writing a book, you should be writing it like any one of these issues could be your last. But the big problem is that and it's an expression, big expression. Complacency kills. All right. So if you know that no matter what, if you write a shit book today, you still have 20 issues. You're going you're gonna get complacent. You're not there was a time where you listen to interviews with Stan Lee back when he was in the bullpen as a writer. Every single time that he put something out to Martin Goodman, there was a risk. There was a risk that came with that, and there was a chance that they didn't like it, and they didn't, and he wouldn't get to do it, and he lucked out on a lot of things. Fantastic Four was a huge gamble for him. It would have been according to him, that's when this was his chance to try and revitalize his career, and if it didn't work, he was going to leave the industry altogether. Yeah. Spider-Man was he wanted this character to work, but they wouldn't let him. So he put him in a throwaway issue, and then Goodman was like, "Oh, this was great. Let's do more of this." But what it comes down to is you have writers that have become complacent because of the deals that they have in their contracts, and you have editors that aren't doing their damn jobs and making sure that the books are quality. I
sorry. I was going to say, yeah, there's no hunger or passion anymore. Like,
Exactly.
Having done a lot of these conventions, I became friends with a lot of guys, and there's a really big writer who recently came back to Marvel. I knew him when he right before he got into Marvel, and then while he was there doing a major event, and him leaving. And he told me at the after party, he goes, Vinny, I'll never work for Marvel ever again. The only way I would is if they back a dump truck full of money into my living room. Sure enough, that's what happened a few years ago. And you can tell. You can tell.
I wonder. I wonder who it is. I think I know. I think I know.
I'm pretty curious myself. I think I have an idea too, because it would confirm some things that I've been thinking.
Listen, like we've all had that shit 9-to-5 job, right?
Yeah.
You keep working that 9-to-5 job, and what happens to you? What happens to your attitude? What do you become? Let me hear you say it. You become complacent. This is exactly what's happening with these writers. This is just a 9-to-5 fucking job for them. It's not a legacy thing. It's not something that they aspired to when they were kids. This is just, this is my 9-to-5 gig, so I can go do something else.
And
do anything alive.
There are onesies and twosies that you'll see that I feel do a solid job. There are a few people in Marvel that I like. When I see their name on a book, I'll at least check it out because they earned that. Same thing with DC, but like for the most part, you hit the nail right on the head. These people don't see this as a passionate thing. It's how can it's a 9-to-5 gig with a potential way to pitch your Netflix series, and like that's what it is to these people, and it sucks because these companies used to be so fan driven, and this is something that I've talked about on multiple occasions where, Marvel used to have fan competitions where fans submit ideas for stories. And, I'm sure that there were probably a slew of them that were god awful. But every
That's
now
where the design for the black costume for Spider-Man came from, was a fan submission.
Exactly. That's actually, we were talking about George R.R. Martin. That's where his writing career started, was he would send in these fan submissions, and so they gave him like an editorial to put at the at the back of their magazines. Like so many great talents. This is how it starts, because the best people to hold this industry and to carry it are the people that grew up loving it. And want it to succeed, want it to thrive, want these characters to be the best that they can be, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are going to come up with these stories that change the landscape.
Absolutely.
Fraggo's been going through and getting those comics interview. This ties into what you're saying, Odin.
Yeah.
Fraggo's been going through and reading the comics journals, like the interviews and whatnot. Every single one of those classic creators that were creating these stories that shaped our fucking industry, they were talking about stuff that they read when they were kids that inspired them to do the shit that they were doing then. Okay? So that's the legacy that you're talking about that is missing today because these people didn't read this shit back then.
No, not at all. They probably read a Wikipedia article to get to brush up on some facts. And
I heard about it. I heard that name before,
and it's unfortunate. You're even seeing it in the some of the more recent MCU films. You could tell that these directors that were in the first few phases gave a shit.
Like Favreau in the first Iron Man movie, he was trying to give that its gravitas that it deserved.
Well, people kind of gloss over it, but Kenneth Branagh's Thor had so much heart and love in it.
It did. The Destroyer was my favorite part.
All the screenplays of the MCU. The scene where Thor explains the 9 realms to Jane. Think what you want on Natalie Portman's performance, but Chris Hemsworth knocked that shit out of the park.
Yeah. He was hungry for it, dude.
And there was just so much love in that. And then you look at something like I won't pick the easy fruit. But you look at Spider-Man,
Thor: The Dark World.
you look at something like Spider-Man: Far From Home, which is objectively a very solid film, but is a terrible representation of Spider-Man, a character who has always represented the consequences that come with your actions. And on paper, you think about, okay, who is the perfect character to do an epilogue to the Infinity Saga? Spider-Man. Yeah. And then you go, well, let's have him go up against a villain that messes with his mind. Let's do Mysterio. Perfect. And then it gets bogged down in being this silly high school drama that's trying to be an 80s nostalgia flick.
Well,
and
that's the thing that sucks about the studio involvement like that, because clearly, like, they have their own agendas. Like you said, in the new wave of Marvel movies, they're being forced to put in a lot of the shit that's inside of the books. Mm-hmm. So, and same thing with Spider-Man. Since it's two different studios now, they have to come to a compromise of what they wanted to tell, because they wanted to do the young teenage years of Spidey. I think people are genuinely fucking sick of that.
I didn't have a problem with it, I get what you're saying.
Huh?
I didn't really have a problem with that, especially considering that they were bringing him in and starting him here. I thought that was fine, but like, I am sick of I wish that they treated him like more of a serious character and not just a high schooler.
Well, I think the problem with that too is that they never showed his Uncle Ben's death again, because they wanted to gloss over it, but not even having a scene or anything to fall back on, and just having Tony Stark replace like that kind of parental father figure type thing. I
would certainly agree with that for Far From Home. Because I think that Far From Home, probably one of the biggest missed opportunities with Far From Home is not having Peter visit the grave of Ben Parker.
Yep.
Because and a buddy of mine pointed this out to me, and it just blew my mind, was that in Infinity War, Peter Parker, Spider-Man, was the one that almost had the gauntlet off of Thanos.
Yep.
And then Thanos won.
Mm-hmm.
And so to have Peter show up after 5 years and feel like he's failed and go to Ben Parker's grave, what a waste. And the other big thing is, of course, all the support ensemble of the film, none of them got to survive the snap, so there was no tangible effect of that on Peter. I think it would have been fantastic if May survived the snap and then Peter's back and she had to mourn effectively her son for 5 years, and then Peter comes back. Do you think, especially with May finding out that he is Spider-Man at the end of Homecoming, do you think May's going to be okay with that?
Right.
With him continuing that role? No. Yeah. Now you have more character conflict.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They took away. Well, they took away all the weight of those moments because they wanted to have something more lighthearted.
Well, yeah, and I think that's a shame. Some of the best Marvel films that have come out are dealing with the heavy weight of consequences. Iron Man is literally the frickin' It's a Wonderful Life almost of Tony Stark, where he realizes, oh my God, this was going to be my legacy.
Yeah.
And going to fix that. Winter Soldier.
Yeah. Well, that's why Iron Man 3. A lot of people shit on Iron Man 3. I thought that was a great movie with his performance and what they did with his writing. It made 100% sense, because if you watch that movie again and then you see Infinity War and Endgame, it ties even stronger, everything all together.
Age of Ultron is the same way. Age of Ultron aged like wine, man. People shat on Age of Ultron so much when it came out because there were these things that people didn't like and didn't understand. But if you watch Avengers 1, 2, and 3 in order, Age of Ultron did so much heavy lifting, it's insane. Mm-hmm. And the fact that it was still a fairly solid film that still held up everything and set up everything for Phase 3 and Infinity War and Endgame, dude, it's impressive.
Middle films always seem to have that role. They have to do like the heavy lifting, and they usually get shat on. You know what I mean? Winter Soldier was the exception. Winter Soldier was just a damn good espionage film.
Well,
even without the superheroes.
That's the thing, and I think that was like the kind of trick with Captain America was Cap has always been this kind of odd thing where reading a Cap book doesn't really feel like a superhero book. It feels like a different genre book with a superhero in it. So like World War II Golden Age Cap books feel like a war movie with a superhero in it. And once you get to the Brubaker run, it's espionage, political thriller with a superhero in it.
Right.
And so the Russos really just dove into that, and they had a blast. And you can tell that they had so much passion, and they loved Steve Rogers as a character, and they loved Bucky Barnes as a character, and they poured that passion into what they put on screen. But then you look at the stuff that's coming out now, and I don't even really give a shit anymore, and that's sad. Like you're talking to somebody that I've seen most Marvel films multiple times in theaters, but it's at a point where I just don't give a shit because
the only one I am remotely looking forward to is Doctor Strange because Sam Raimi's directing it.
I would be, but Raimi's filmography of late has been a bit stale.
Mm-hmm.
Like when's the last thing that he did something of great note? And I'm also a bit mad at Raimi because he never followed up on that Shadow film that he promised us. Jerk.
I totally forgot about that. Maybe he ran into a dead end.
And that's the thing. I didn't have the right. He kept saying I didn't have the right script, and I'm just like, yo. Did you not?
He did run into a dead end.
Did you not talk to like Matt Wagner, who has literally been writing did like a whole crap ton of great Shadow books for Dynamite?
Man, they don't need to talk to these petty any comic book writers. I mean, like real Hollywood writers, they look down their nose at comics. So I find it funny that people try to use it to get into that arena, but whatever.
So I gotta say this is something that's really frustrating to me. People seem to think, at least people on the outside who don't know anything about either of these industries that are trying to break in, they seem to think that Hollywood and like the comic book world are synonymous for the same kind of thing. Mm-hmm. They're night and day. The way that comic books are most effective and most successful, and the way that movies, I'm not even going to say are most successful, the way that movies are made. Because movies are not made in a way that is the most successful. Movies are made in the way that is the most profitable. We're not focused on the same thing. When you're looking at a movie, you're looking at ticket sales. And you're looking at how much you're going to make in a box office versus how much it's going to cost you to make that movie. You aren't looking, it's almost zero fan service. You don't give a flying fuck who goes to see your film. If they love it, they hate it, they go to see it because they have a rage boner for you. Like, you don't give a shit.
Yeah.
You care that they buy the ticket.
Standpoint, absolutely.
Right.
You care that they buy the ticket, they buy the merchandise, they buy the DVD.
And there's too many chefs in the kitchen. I mean, I've done some storyboard work. I've seen done some storyboard work, and to see how they all operate and how you have to please like a dozen different people at the same time, and then the script is changing or something else is changing.
Man, that ain't nowhere to work.
Cuts, you have timelines, you have and granted, while these things exist in comics, they exist on a very, very different severity level. Because
it also is far more focused in comics. You have your editor, and
you have less people. But
exactly.
When you're looking at movies, you have producers, you have writers, you have actors, and you have such a stringent timeline because literally every single day that you are on set is thousands of dollars.
Yep.
And every single day that you're on set is another day less that you have your talent, because your talent isn't just doing your movie. Your talent can't afford to just do your movie. Your talent is doing a shit ton of other things. So you have a small window where you have whoever the fuck is going to be your actors and actresses to have them all together to get filming done. It isn't anything like comics. There's a couple of parallels that you can make where, okay, when you storyboard out a movie versus when you draw comic book panels, it's kind of the same, because you're showing action and how you're getting from one thing to another.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit similar. But when you're talking about the actual industry, the focus is so drastically different that all of these people that are trying to break into comics to get into movies are moronic people. They have absolutely no fucking clue, because it's night and day when you're in those two industries.
Two different mediums, two different ways to tell a story. Similar, but not the same.
They're very different.
Same,
Like,
but different.
I don't even like the comparison of like even like a storyboard to a comic book panel. Because at the end of the day, when you're directing a comic book panel, that is the full art form. Like you have to establish everything that your audience is absorbing in your panels. A storyboard is just a rough mock-up of what you want a scene to look like. And
the storyboard has to fit a certain format. A panel can be whatever you want. You can make a unique shape to tell a specific part of a story with a panel. It's apples to oranges.
All that stuff is it complements the story when you're doing it in a comic book. You could go with different things to accentuate what's happening on the page. But storyboards, yes and no. It depends who you're working with and what you're trying to do, because sometimes the full vision is not there yet, and the storyboard artist does a lot more than you think. So
I realize that, and I'm sure especially if you're doing storyboarding for say an animated series, I'm sure that the process for that is much more in depth or what have you. But you also see I'm just going to use him because he posts a lot of his storyboards and what have you. But Zack Snyder will straight up showcase what his cause he storyboards every, according to him, he storyboards every scene that he shoots personally.
Right.
And so to see that seeing what Snyder does, that is the bare minimum of what you'd see from a storyboard. Because Snyder's not a visual artist that draws. He's a filmmaking storyteller. So it's very rough. It's almost a little bit hyper detailed stick figures that are interacting with one another. That's effectively what it is. And I'm not the guy's not making variant covers or anything. He's a filmmaker. But that's effectively it's him visualizing his what he wants in his scene, what point of view he wants the cameras and everything in. But to move on from that, because I know that but
we're talking about Zack Snyder, right?
To move on from that, the point is that they are drastically different things. And there are the idea that you're going to use the popularity of comics to just shift into film means that you don't understand either industry.
No, I'm gonna write it's just so easy to get into comics and just write a hit story, and then I can sell it to Netflix. That's how this works. This is a medium I don't know anything about, so it must be super easy, right?
The only channel that I've seen that has actively been doing that pretty much without filter was Sci-Fi, and I felt that they did that Mags Massaggio. I'm probably completely butchering her name. Series that got it got its first few episodes, and it's all I know it had super low numbers, and I'm fairly certain it's canceled. Because
it's not unusual for a sci-fi series, though. So,
and I get that. I do think that it was a shame, because I feel if they had marketed Deadly Class better, it probably would have gotten a season 2. I had a great time with. I loved the book, and I had a great time with the series. And it was produced by the Russos.
With the trades. Oh, it was produced by the Russos. That's cool.
Yeah. So the fight scenes feel very, very much like a Russo scene.
So there's a question that Unhinged put in here a little bit ago that I really wanted to kind of get to as well. He says, what books out there do you feel the writer was at a dead end and phoned in the ending, like the obvious, just to try and end the book?
Tom King's Batman.
Wow, low hanging fruit.
That was just quick.
It's not wrong though.
Hold
He's not
on.
fucking
Let
wrong.
Vinny talk.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, yeah, that Tom King. First of all, he never knew the character, never.
Yeah.
The voice of Batman, what he did was all garbage. What they should have done if they wanted him in there, because they said, oh, he's CIA or ex-CIA, whatever it was. It sounds like they wanted to have more kind of stories from that world, but instead they let him do this little fucking soap opera. They should have sat him down in a room with Paul Dini and had a proper conversation. I think Paul is one of the guys who knows Batman inside and out.
Yeah,
he knows the character thoroughly.
Sure.
Yeah. I don't know why Paul Dini isn't just any single time that you want to do something with Batman, Harley Quinn, Joker. Paul Dini needs to have a creative credit as an editor, because he should be the one that gets the Paul Dini has written some of the best Batman stories of all time. Batman the Animated Series is all that needs to be said. And Mask of the Phantasm.
Yeah. Well, he did
Mask of the Phantasm is still the best Batman movie.
It's fantastic.
Yes.
But he also did a few little runs on Detective as well.
Yep.
You know, and he knows
his War on Crime book with Alex Ross. Freaking amazing.
Yeah. Oh, yep. I have that over on the shelf here.
I've got his Shazam Power of Hope in a frame somewhere, signed by him and Ross. It is a prized possession.
So somebody, Chad, just posted something that I thought was actually kind of awesome. He said, according to Joseph Campbell's template, IRL for that matter, it wouldn't be a dead end. It would be an arrow pointing you in a different direction. Sometimes, but other times, if that arrow is pointing you in such a drastically different direction than where your story was wanting to go, then it maybe is just it's pointing you to the trash bin.
Yeah.
That's troubling. It's not where it should be.
Well, we've been going for almost 2 hours, which seems to be about our standard. Anybody have any little parting shots that they wanna throw out there about dead ends, or any other questions from the chat?
Let me see. I haven't looked at the chat in a minute, so
the chat's going nuts.
I know.
Love the chat.
I saw 77 messages on the live comments thing. I was like, oh god. I have
not the chat.
Oh, it's been great. Our audience is always so engaged in these episodes, and it makes me so happy because it not only does it continue to give us stuff to talk about, which is phenomenal, but it shows that people are interested in these kinds of topics and these kinds of shows, and it just makes it that much more motivating to try and really keep doing this every Sunday, because I know it's a late night for a lot of us. Obviously, Will being 90 is half asleep through most of our shows.
He's fucking 3 hours behind me. Fuck that.
You stay up until like 4 a.m.
So my favorite thing about the comments is that I'll be in like the middle of talking, and like Shae, you'll post up like one of the ones, and it will be one of the guys throwing a joke, and it will completely throw off everything that I was about to say. Because
I'm not gonna lie, I use it as a way to get you to calm down sometimes too, because I'll see something and I'll be like, if I put this up there, Odin's gonna get distracted, and then we can interject.
Well, I completely understand it. It's very effective. And it's something that I've been trying to work on. I know that when I get on like a tangent, it will just go on, and I apologize.
You're fine.
But
I'm getting used to it. I'm getting better at stopping you when it goes too far.
But like I do, that's literally one of my favorite things, is just seeing like, because they've got a great sense of humor there in the chat. It definitely throws me for a loop.
They
do. Chat's always awesome.
I love our chat. You guys are amazing and make this fun. And Red Valkyrie, last I checked, was 150 away from 1,000 subs, which I don't even understand. You guys are amazing. it's super exciting for me because this is something that I want to do long term. I don't want this to go away. I want this to be something that I get to keep doing. And so get your writing friends in on Writing Prose on Sunday. Like it usually is pretty insightful, and I don't think it's too boring. I don't know. Sometimes Will makes me question it.
Well, Will being 90, he's got delayed reflexes, so it takes him a little while to react to things.
Yeah.
Well, I do sometimes think before I speak.
Occasionally.
Sometimes?
Not when I'm introing him and he refers to me as woman.
Well, because everything about every
No, that was planned.
you just comes naturally.
No, that was.
Oh,
that was
okay.
very obvious.
It was completely staged.
Yeah, that was totally planned.
He just had it waiting in the wings. He was like,
Exactly.
It's gonna be great.
It's just my contempt for you is so bottomless that I can just wrap it out.
Wow, contempt.
So if I have to freestyle contempt, I can just go, like Eminem with
Holy
a Patriot.
shit. I agree with Art. Happy Pops Day to all the CG dads. You guys are amazing.
Happy Father's Day. Thanks.
I think we only have one on our panel, but hey. Happy Daddy's Day.
I got cats.
That doesn't count.
Hey, I got kids. There's City of Venus. There's Through the Woods.
Vinny has kids in other zip codes. He
out
just
there,
doesn't
but
acknowledge them.
I don't know.
Listen, if I get that knock on the door,
I think some other guy's raising them, but we'll see.
Oh my gosh, you guys are terrible.
What? Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Too much information.
On that note,
Oh well.
Did we
You
reach a
guys
dead
are-
end?
you guys are amazing. Yes, we have
I
reached
don't
a
think my
very
genetic line has.
we have a critical dead end that there is
Knew
there's
somebody was
no
going
way
to
to
get
get
that
around.
joke. Chaos.
Oh, Art! Holy shit! Vinny has a kid in every state.
Damn.
I got a
I don't know.
50 chillings. Vinny,
I don't
you
know
got,
who those
you
whores
got
are.
quite the backlog of checks to be filing there, my friend.
Dang,
I
dude.
wear rubber. I don't think no. There might have been one accident, but again, if I get a knock on the door, I don't know who they are.
Frankie can't afford Christmas time.
Laying so much pipe, you're king of the union.
All right.
That's
Well,
why they call it the boner king.
you guys
I
are
mean,
amazing.
it's on brand, dude. So there you go.
Thank you guys so much in the chat for coming and hanging out with us. You guys, as always, are super awesome. Make sure that you go check out Elysian Fields, go check out Black Flag, go check out Through the Woods, City of Venus, all of those amazing works of just glorious art and wonderful storytelling. They're all gonna be amazing. The links are in the chat or in the description. So make sure you check them all out.
They'll be in the chat too.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate that, Luke, because my brain and functioning is not working right now.
That's awesome.
I
And
got
please
you, fam.
check out my YouTube channel as well, Vinny Art. I'm gonna have, speaking of art, he's gonna be on my channel on the 25th. So come check that out.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, that'll be a
I'll
good
give
one.
you a follow right now, Vinny.
Sweet.
I don't know if I'm following you or not.
But yeah, so I super appreciate all you guys for coming out. And yeah, like Art said, Black and White is now live on
right.
Indiegogo. Go get your Black and White on. And yeah,
Like if y'all missed it the first time around, I'm just saying.
Hey, Luke, shut up.
What? Just saying.
Oh my
Hey,
gosh.
hey, Art, we gonna get a print of that Capullo variant cover because like hook a brother up. I'm just saying. All right.
Look at him. He's like, I'll post the link to your thing if I can get a print. All right. I love you guys. You guys are all amazing. Thank you all so much for coming out. Do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to Red Valkyrie. And let's get us to 1K. And yeah, we'll catch you guys next time. Thanks so much for coming out, everyone.
Bye.
Have a good night.
Oh.
Oh man, that's pretty.